One toilet paper roll, a handful of marigolds, and 0 chemicals are all it takes to build a pest-proof garden that outperforms the $9 billion pesticide industry. I know that sounds ridiculous. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why it works, and exactly why the companies selling you sprays, powders, and granules would really prefer you never found out. Here is what I want you to consider. The average American gardener spends somewhere between $200 and $400 a year on pest control products. Sprays for aphids, granules for beetles, fungicides for blight, neem oil for everything else. And most of the time, the pests come back. Sometimes worse than before, because the spray also killed the beneficial insects that were keeping the pest population in check. This is a cycle that most gardeners know intimately. You see holes in your leaves. You panic. You go to the store. You buy a bottle that promises to kill everything. You spray it. The pests disappear for 2 weeks. Then they return, often in greater numbers, because the ladybugs and lacewings and parasitic wasps that were naturally controlling the population are now dead. So you buy a stronger spray. The cycle tightens. Every season, more products. Every season, worse results. Every season, more money flowing from your wallet into the coffers of an industry that has absolutely no incentive to solve your problem permanently. Because if your problem was solved, they would have nothing left to sell you. Now consider this. In Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, Amish families have been growing cleaner, healthier, more abundant crops than their neighbors for generations. No sprays, no treatments, no chemical interventions of any kind. Their gardens are not pest-free because the pests chose to stay away out of respect. Their gardens are pest-free because of something far more interesting. These families, whether they know it or not, have been exploiting one of the most sophisticated defense systems in all of biology. A system that modern science is only now beginning to fully understand. Plants have immune systems, and once you understand how those immune systems work, everything you thought you knew about pest control falls apart. Let us start there. In 2006, 2 researchers, Jonathan Jones and Jeffrey Dangle, published a landmark paper in the journal Nature titled "The Plant Immune System." What they described was something that changed the way biologists think about plants entirely. Plants, they explained, do not just sit there and take it when a pathogen or a pest attacks. They fight back. They have a 2-branched innate immune system. The first branch detects molecular patterns that are common to many types of microbes, including harmless ones, and mounts a general defense. Think of it like your body noticing something foreign and raising a low-level alarm. The second branch is more targeted. It detects specific molecules that pathogens use to attack, and it triggers a much more aggressive response. Cell walls thicken. Toxic compounds are produced. Entire cells will sacrifice themselves to prevent the infection from spreading. But here is the thing. This immune system does not function at maximum capacity by default. It functions on a spectrum. A plant that is stressed, undernourished, or growing in dead soil has an immune system that is barely operational. A plant that is thriving in rich, biologically active soil with balanced mineral nutrition has an immune system that can make it virtually untouchable. This is where John Kempf enters the story. Kempf is Amish. He was born and raised on a farm in Ohio. He had an 8th grade education, which is standard in Amish communities. In his late teens, his family's farm suffered crop failures. Diseases wiped out their fields, and pests were relentless. Everything they tried failed. So Kempf did something unusual. He started reading, not farming magazines, but scientific papers, biology textbooks, and agronomy research. For 2 years, the farmer with an 8th grade education taught himself the sciences, driven by a single question: why are my plants sick? What he found changed everything. Kempf discovered that the pest problem was not really a pest problem. It was a nutrition problem. His plants were getting attacked because they were weak, and they were weak because the soil was not providing what the plants needed to run their immune systems at full capacity. In 2006, at just 18 years old, Kempf founded a company called Advancing Eco-Agriculture. He developed a framework he calls the plant health pyramid, which maps how a plant's immune defenses activate in stages as the plant's health improves. That framework has since been adopted by growers around the world, and it is built on a beautifully simple principle. Healthy plants do not need pesticides because healthy plants can defend themselves. Let me walk you through the pyramid, because once you see it, you'll never look at a garden the same way. At the base, level 1, is complete photosynthesis. When a plant has adequate levels of 5 specific minerals: magnesium, iron, manganese, nitrogen, and phosphorus, its photosynthetic efficiency can increase by anywhere from 150 to 600%. That's not a typo. Most agricultural crops are photosynthesizing at roughly 25% of their genetic capacity. When you fix the mineral balance, the plant starts producing far more complex carbohydrates. And here's where it gets interesting. Those complex carbohydrates change the root exudates the plant feeds to soil microbes, which in turn changes the microbial profile in the soil around the roots. The soil becomes disease-suppressive rather than disease-enhancing. At this level, the plant develops resistance to soil-borne fungal pathogens: Fusarium, Pythium, Verticillium, Rhizoctonia. The things that cause root rot and wilt and damping off. Gone. Not suppressed, not managed. The plant simply becomes an unsuitable host. Level 2 is complete protein synthesis. When the plant has adequate magnesium, sulfur, molybdenum, and boron, it begins converting all of its soluble nitrogen compounds into complete proteins within every 24-hour cycle. No leftover nitrates, no residual ammonium in the sap. Why does this matter? Because larval and sucking insects, the aphids, the whiteflies, the thrips, the cabbage loopers, the hornworms, they feed on soluble nitrates and simple sugars in the plant's sap. They literally cannot digest complete proteins. Their digestive systems are too simple. So when a plant is fully converting its nitrogen into complete proteins, these insects land on it, take a sip, and leave. There's nothing for them to eat. The plant hasn't killed them, it hasn't repelled them, it has simply removed itself from their menu. This is what Kempf calls passive immunity. The plant doesn't fight the pest, it just stops being food. Levels 3 and 4 are where things get truly remarkable. These levels depend not just on mineral chemistry, but on soil biology, on thriving communities of fungi and bacteria in the root zone. At level 3, when the plant is receiving complex nutritional compounds directly from soil microbes, what Kempf calls prefabricated parts, the plant has so much excess energy that it starts storing it as lipids, fats, on the surface of its leaves. That waxy layer becomes a physical barrier. Airborne fungal and bacterial pathogens, the ones that cause powdery mildew, downy mildew, late blight, bacterial leaf spot, they cannot penetrate it. They land on the leaf and they can't get in. Their enzymes can't break through the wax. And at level 4, the pinnacle, the plant's immune pathways are fully triggered by beneficial microbes in both the root zone and on the leaf surface. The plant begins producing high concentrations of secondary metabolites. These are the compounds we recognize as caffeine, nicotine, tannins, terpenes, alkaloids. They're chemical weapons, and at this level, the plant becomes resistant to the toughest pests of all: beetles, stink bugs, nematodes, even viruses. A plant at level 4 of the plant health pyramid is, for all practical purposes, pest-proof. Now I want to slow down here, because this is important. What Kempf described did not come from a university lab or a corporate research division. It came from a young Amish man reading scientific literature by lantern light, cross-referencing field observations from his own community with published research in plant pathology, soil chemistry, and entomology. And it is not fringe science. Every mechanism he describes is documented in peer-reviewed literature. A 2022 paper in Frontiers in Plant Science confirmed that mineral nutrition is the first line of plant defense. The work of Francis Chabousseau, a French agronomist, documented extensively how pesticide and synthetic fertilizer use actually weakens plant immunity by disrupting protein synthesis. Kempf's contribution was connecting these separate findings into a single practical framework that a farmer in a field could actually use. And the results speak for themselves. One Amish farmer named Samuel Zook, who adopted Kempf's methods, described noticing that his crops smelled different from his neighbors, stronger, more pungent. Those aromas, he explained, are compounds the plants produce to defend themselves. Most people do not realize that plants have immune systems. That quote stuck with me. It should stick with you too. Now, stop and think about what this means. The entire pesticide industry, a market valued at nearly $9 billion just for home and garden products alone, exists fundamentally because we are growing sick plants. Plants so nutritionally compromised that they cannot even complete basic photosynthesis, let alone mount an immune response. And instead of fixing the underlying problem, the nutrition, the soil biology, we spray chemicals on the symptoms. It is like giving someone with scurvy a painkiller instead of an orange. The Amish families in Lancaster County who never spray anything are not doing some mystical, folksy thing that cannot be explained. They are building soil, they are composting, they are rotating crops, they are maintaining biological diversity, and as a result, their plants are climbing that pyramid on their own. Their tomatoes are producing enough complete proteins that aphids ignore them. Their squash leaves are waxy enough that mildew slides off. Their root zones are so biologically active that fungal pathogens cannot establish. It is not magic, it is biology. It has been there the whole time, we just stopped paying attention. But the Amish are not only relying on soil health. They use another technique that has been around for centuries, one that modern science has finally started to validate. And it involves one of the most underestimated plants in the garden, the marigold. If you have spent any time around experienced gardeners, you have probably heard that marigolds repel pests. It is one of those pieces of garden lore that gets passed around so casually that it almost sounds like an old wives' tale. Plant some marigolds next to your tomatoes and the bugs will leave you alone. For a long time, scientists could not figure out why this seemed to work, or even if it really did. Then, in 2019, researchers at Newcastle University in England decided to find out. Led by Niall Conboy, the team studied the volatile organic compounds emitted by French marigolds when grown alongside tomato plants. They discovered that marigolds produce a compound called limonene, a terpene also found in high concentrations in citrus peels. When marigolds grow next to tomatoes, the limonene they release into the air effectively masks the tomato plant's own chemical signature, the scent signals that whiteflies use to locate their host. The whitefly lands in the area and it cannot find the tomato. The marigold has thrown an invisibility cloak over it, but that is not all marigolds do. Below ground, certain marigold species produce compounds called thiophenes, particularly one called alpha-terthional. When secreted from the roots, these compounds suppress root knot nematodes, microscopic worms that devastate the root systems of tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, and dozens of other crops. Nematodes are one of the most difficult soil pests to control with conventional methods. Marigolds handle them chemically, from the inside out. And this is not just anecdotal. Studies published across multiple journals have confirmed that marigolds demonstrate measurable insecticidal activity against mosquitoes, aphids, leafhoppers, grain beetles, and caterpillars, in addition to their nematode-suppressing effects. The Amish knew this, not from reading journals, but from watching their gardens. This is what companion planting actually is when it is done with intention. It is not a random arrangement of pretty flowers next to your vegetables. It is chemical warfare conducted by plants on behalf of other plants, and it goes deeper than most people realize. Every plant on Earth releases volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, into the air around it. These are chemical signals. Some attract pollinators, some repel herbivores, some warn neighboring plants that an attack is underway, and some, like the limonene from marigolds, create zones of olfactory confusion where pest insects literally cannot find their target. Insects do not have eyes like ours. Many of them navigate almost entirely by smell. They detect specific chemical signatures emitted by the plants they want to eat, and they fly toward those signals like heat-seeking missiles. When you grow a tomato in a bare plot with nothing around it, that tomato is broadcasting its location to every whitefly, hornworm, and aphid in the neighborhood. It is a lone signal in a sea of silence. It might as well have a neon sign on it. But when you surround that tomato with basil, marigolds, garlic, and nasturtiums, every one of those plants is broadcasting its own chemical signature. The air around your tomato becomes a wall of noise. The pest cannot isolate the tomato's signal from the confusion of everything else. It is the biological equivalent of trying to hear someone whisper in a packed stadium. This is what scientists call associational resistance, and it is one of the most powerful and least expensive forms of pest management in existence. Basil planted near tomatoes releases volatile compounds that confuse hornworms. Dill attracts parasitic wasps that lay their eggs inside caterpillars, killing them from the inside. Nasturtiums act as trap crops, luring aphids away from your lettuce by offering themselves as a more attractive target. Garlic and onions emit sulfur compounds that disrupt the navigation of a wide range of insects. And the classic Amish and indigenous companion planting system, the three sisters, corn, beans, and squash grown together, is not just about saving space. The corn provides a structure for the beans to climb, eliminating the need for trellises or stakes. The beans fix atmospheric nitrogen into the soil through a symbiotic relationship with bacteria called rhizobia that colonize their root nodules, feeding both the corn and the squash with the single nutrient that those heavy feeders need most. And the squash spreads across the ground, its broad leaves shading the soil to retain moisture and suppress weeds, its prickly stems deterring raccoons and other animals from entering the planting area. 3 plants, 3 completely different species, each solving a problem the others have, each contributing something the others need. No fertilizer required, no irrigation beyond rainfall in most climates, no pest control needed because the diversity of the planting confuses specialists and the health of the soil supports the plant's own defenses. This system was developed by indigenous peoples in the Americas long before European contact. The Haudenosaunee, the Wampanoag, the Cherokee, and dozens of other nations grew these 3 crops together as the foundation of their agriculture. It sustained millions of people for thousands of years. The Amish adopted and adapted it, and it still works exactly as well today as it did 500 years ago, because it was not built on technology, it was built on ecology. Every one of these relationships evolved over millions of years. They are not tricks. They are the operating system of the natural world, and they work because plants do not exist in isolation. They exist in communities, constantly communicating, constantly responding. And that brings me to something that might be the most astonishing part of this entire story. The underground network. In 1997, a forest ecologist named Suzanne Simard published a groundbreaking paper in Nature demonstrating that trees in a forest share carbon with each other through a network of underground fungal connections. She showed that paper birch and Douglas fir, connected by a shared mycorrhizal fungal network, were transferring carbon bidirectionally. When one tree was shaded and struggling, the other would send it resources through the fungal web. The press called it the Wood Wide Web, and while that name is a bit whimsical, the science behind it is profound. Mycorrhizal fungi form symbiotic relationships with the roots of roughly 90% of all land plants. The fungal hyphae, thin filaments that extend far beyond the reach of any root system, act as extensions of the plant's own nutrient-gathering apparatus. In exchange for sugars from the plant, the fungi deliver water, phosphorus, nitrogen, and micronutrients from deep in the soil. But the network does more than move nutrients. It moves information. When a plant is attacked by a pest, it produces defense chemicals. Some of those chemicals and the molecular signals associated with them can travel through the mycorrhizal network to neighboring plants. Those neighbors then upregulate their own defenses before the pest even reaches them. The network is, in a very real sense, a warning system. Simard's later research showed that this network connects not just pairs of trees, but entire forest communities. Hub trees, which she calls mother trees, are linked to hundreds of other trees and can preferentially allocate resources to their own offspring or to struggling neighbors. Now think about what this means for a garden. When you till the soil, when you turn it over every spring with a rototiller or a plow, you shred those fungal networks to pieces. You destroy the communication infrastructure. You isolate every plant, cutting it off from the community that would otherwise support it, warn it, and feed it. Till the soil and you break the system. And it is not just the communication you are destroying. Those mycorrhizal fungi are your plant's nutrient delivery system. A plant's root system can only reach so far, but the fungal hyphae attached to those roots can extend meters beyond the roots themselves, accessing water and minerals that the plant would never reach on its own. When researchers measure the actual nutrient-absorbing surface area of a plant connected to a mycorrhizal network versus one that is not, the difference is staggering. The networked plant may have hundreds or even 1,000 times more effective root surface area. Every time you till, you reset this system to zero. The fungi have to regrow. The network has to re-establish. Your plants spend weeks or months in a nutritionally compromised state, photosynthesizing at a fraction of their potential, unable to synthesize complete proteins, unable to produce the lipid barriers and secondary metabolites that would protect them from attack. Then you wonder why your tomatoes get blight and your squash gets beetles and your lettuce is covered in aphids. You have taken a connected, communicating, self-defending ecosystem and turned it into a collection of lonely, malnourished individuals. Of course they get sick. Of course the pests come. And then you buy a spray, and the cycle continues. This is the fundamental insight. Pests are not the problem. Pests are the symptom. They are nature's cleanup crew. In a healthy ecosystem, insects that we call pests serve an important function. They consume weak and dying plant material. They are recyclers. When they show up in your garden in overwhelming numbers, they are not invading. They are doing their job. They are telling you that your plants are weak, your soil is dead, and your system is broken. Think about it this way. In a forest, you do not see epidemics of aphids wiping out entire groves of healthy trees. Pests exist in forests, of course, but they exist in balance. They are kept in check by predators, by the diversity of plant species, and by the health of the plants themselves. A forest does not spray for pests. Neither does a prairie or a wetland. These ecosystems have managed pest populations for millions of years using soil biology, mycorrhizal networks, chemical diversity from companion species, and predator-prey balance. The modern garden has none of this. We start with dead soil. We plant a single species in neat rows with bare earth between them. We add synthetic fertilizer that disrupts the plant's ability to produce defensive compounds. We kill the soil biology with fungicides. We destroy the fungal networks with tilling, and then we blame the insects. We are not fighting pests, we are creating them. The Amish approach, and increasingly the approach of the most advanced regenerative agriculture practitioners in the world, is to stop fighting the symptom and start fixing the system. Build the soil, not with synthetic fertilizer, which provides a quick chemical jolt but does nothing for biological life and in fact suppresses it. Synthetic nitrogen fertilizer, when applied to soil, is like giving a patient intravenous sugar. It creates a temporary spike in growth, but it bypasses and eventually atrophies the biological systems that would normally feed the plant. Soil microbes, the bacteria and fungi that make nutrients available in forms plants can actually use, are starved out when you flood the system with soluble chemicals. The soil becomes dependent on the next application, the plants become dependent on the next application, and the farmer becomes dependent on the next purchase. Build soil with compost, with cover crops, with animal manure, with organic matter that feeds the billions of microorganisms that make soil alive. 1 teaspoon of healthy soil contains more microorganisms than there are people on Earth. Those microbes are not just passengers, they are the engine. They fix nitrogen, they solubilize phosphorus, they produce plant growth hormones, they suppress pathogens through competition and direct antagonism. They are, in the most literal sense possible, the immune system of the soil itself. Stop tilling. Let the fungal networks establish. Let the earthworms do the aerating. Let the biology do what it has been doing for 400 million years. Plant for diversity, not monoculture. Companion plant with intention. Use marigolds, basil, dill, nasturtiums, garlic, and onions, not as decoration, but as chemical allies. Use the three sisters. Interplant, mix species, create confusion for the pests and cooperation among the plants. Save your seeds. Heirloom varieties, the ones that have been grown in specific regions for generations, are genetically adapted to local conditions. They carry innate resilience to local pests and diseases that no hybrid seed bred in a laboratory can replicate. The Amish have been saving seeds for hundreds of years. That is not nostalgia, that is genetic intelligence. When you buy a seed packet from a big box store, you are usually getting a modern hybrid bred for uniformity, shelf life, and yield under ideal conditions. What was bred out? Resilience. Heirloom. Tomatoes grown in Lancaster County for 8 generations have been through every pest, every blight, every drought that region could throw at them. The weak ones died. The strong ones were replanted. That is natural selection in someone's garden, and the result is a plant deeply adapted to thrive without chemical support. Encourage beneficial insects. Ladybugs eat aphids, lacewings eat whiteflies, parasitic wasps destroy caterpillars, ground beetles patrol for slugs. A single ladybug can eat up to 5,000 aphids in its lifetime. You do not need to buy these insects. You just need to stop killing them with broad-spectrum pesticides and start planting the flowers and herbs that attract them. Dill, fennel, yarrow, sweet alyssum, and cilantro left to flower. When you create a garden that supports these predators year-round, you are hiring a permanent, self-replicating pest control crew that works for free. Rotate your crops. Never plant the same family in the same spot 2 years running. This prevents pest and disease populations from building up in the soil. The Amish rotate religiously. Corn follows beans, beans follow squash, squash follows corn. The soil never becomes specialized enough for any single pest population to establish. And if you still need something more, make a garlic pepper spray. Blend a head of garlic with a couple of hot peppers, steep it in water overnight, strain it, add a few drops of dish soap as a surfactant, and spray it on your plants. Test it on a small area first, because high concentrations can cause leaf burn in direct sunlight. But used correctly, this costs pennies and contains nothing you would not put in your own dinner. The Amish have been making variations of this spray for as long as anyone can remember. They are just concentrated versions of the same volatile compounds that the plants themselves would produce if they were healthy enough to do so. One toilet paper roll with the bottom cut out, pressed into the soil around a transplant, creates a collar that cutworms cannot cross. Cutworms are nocturnal caterpillars that chew through young stems at the soil line. They have ruined more first-year gardens than any other single pest. A cardboard collar is all it takes to stop them. A row cover keeps cabbage moths off your brassicas. A beer trap sunk into the ground catches slugs by the dozen overnight. Copper tape around raised beds delivers a mild charge that snails will not cross. Diatomaceous earth sprinkled on the soil cuts through the bodies of soft-bodied insects that crawl across it. These are not primitive techniques. They are elegant ones. They work with the system instead of against it, and they cost almost nothing. Now I want to address something honestly. There is a romanticized version of the Amish that floats around the internet. The idea that every Amish farm is a perfectly organic paradise is not entirely true. Some Amish farmers do use conventional pesticides and fertilizers. The Amish are a diverse group, and they are, above all, practical people. But what is true is that a growing number of Amish farms, particularly in Lancaster County and Holmes County, Ohio, are moving towards certified organic practices. And the organic Amish farms, the ones following the principles I have described in this video, are producing remarkable results. Higher organic matter in their soils than neighboring conventional farms, greater biodiversity, more resilient crops, and methods that would be recognizable to a farmer from 300 years ago. The irony is almost too perfect. In a world racing towards synthetic biology, gene-edited crops, and AI-powered precision agriculture, some of the most effective pest management on the planet is being done by people who drive horse-drawn buggies and read by lantern light. They are not anti-science. They are ahead of the science. They arrived at the same conclusions that Jones and Dangle published in Nature, that Kempf codified in his plant health pyramid, and that Simard mapped in her mycorrhizal network research, not through papers and peer review, but through centuries of watching, centuries of paying attention to what the land was telling them. There is a word the Amish use, Gelassenheit. It does not translate perfectly into English, but it roughly means yielding, letting go, submission to a higher order. In farming, that philosophy manifests as a willingness to let nature lead, to observe before you intervene, and to build systems that sustain themselves rather than systems that depend on constant inputs. Gelassenheit. It is the polar opposite of how industrial agriculture operates. Industrial agriculture says the soil is a medium, the plant is a factory, the pest is an enemy, and the chemical is a weapon. Gelassenheit says the soil is alive, the plant is a member of a community, the pest is a signal, and patience is the most powerful tool you own. Soil and patience. That second philosophy built the gardens of Lancaster County. It built the farms that survive drought while their chemical-dependent neighbors collapse. It built the food systems that have sustained communities for 3 centuries without depleting a single acre. That philosophy is not just a spiritual principle, it is, whether they frame it this way or not, the foundation of every successful ecological approach to agriculture. And here is the thing that the $9 billion pesticide industry will never tell you. You do not need to be Amish to practice this. You do not need 100 acres. You do not need a theology. You need a compost pile. You need some heirloom seeds. You need a packet of marigold seeds that costs $2. You need to stop spraying and start observing. You need to get your hands in the dirt, smell the soil, notice which insects are present, and watch what your plants are telling you. The garden was never a battlefield. It was always a conversation. The Amish have been listening for 300 years. It is time the rest of us started, because the garden does not need another spray. It needs better soil. It needs more diversity. It needs you to stop seeing pests as enemies and start seeing them as messengers. And it needs you to trust that a system designed over hundreds of millions of years of evolution might know what it is doing a little better than a corporation that has been selling you chemicals for the last 70. If this changed the way you think about your garden, subscribe to Forbidden Harvest and hit the notification bell so you do not miss the next deep dive. We go deep into the knowledge that modern agriculture walked away from, the techniques that actually work, and the science they do not teach you. Drop a comment below. Tell me, have you tried companion planting? Have you gone chemical-free? If you have not, what is the one thing from this video that made you think twice? The harvest begins now.